Magic the Gathering's newest set, The Hobbit, is about to arrive at your local game store, and with it comes one of my favorite ways to play Magic: pre-release. Pre-release events are the best way to experience a new set, whether you're an established player, someone returning after a long hiatus, or just a Tolkien fan looking to break into Magic the Gathering for the first time. I highly recommend playing in at least one pre-release event, and they are something that I feel is very worth it. Pre-release events are a form of sealed tournament where you receive a pre-release kit at your local game store, which contains 6 sealed packs of the newest set, as well as 1 promo card. Also included is a 20-sided spin-down die for tracking your life. Using this kit and as many basic lands from your local game store's basic land station as you'd like, you'll build a deck of 40 cards to battle against other players who also built decks out of their pre-release kits. Now, if you've never attended a pre-release event, or it's just been a while since your last one, you can always check out our video explaining how to build a sealed deck, a new player's guide which will outline everything you need to know about this fun and easy to learn format. This is also a really good video to show to a friend you may be bringing along with you. This video will assume that you already know how to build a sealed deck and will instead focus on how to build the best possible sealed deck that you can out of your Hobbit pre-release pool. It's going to cover everything from the set's mechanics to its archetypes to the key cards that you should keep an eye out for when cracking your packs. I'm also going to open up my own sealed pool here in a moment so that we can practice together building a deck from it. We've got a lot of information to cover today, so let's get started. But first, actually, if you want to build a good sealed deck, the best way to do that is to know what your cards do. So, they say reading the card explains the card. I'm just going to go ahead and read you every single card in my sealed pool real quick. Let's begin with Forest. Tap to add a green mana. Now, that's really interesting because you can use this card to cast green spells or activate green... Oh, I'm sorry, what is it? Are you bored? Does learning bore you? Fine, if you're going to yawn about it, why don't you just go take a nap or something? Maybe if you spent a few hours on a Helix mattress, you'd be a little less rude. You'd certainly be a little less tired, so it's a good thing that Helix is the sponsor of today's video. Finding the right mattress is important, and Helix knows it. That's why USA Today rated them as the most trusted mattress brand of 2026. The Helix Sleep Quiz will match you to your perfect mattress based on your body type and sleep preferences. From there, it's as simple as placing an order. Helix will ship you your mattress directly to your door, free to anywhere inside the United States. Want to try it out for yourself? With Helix's 120-night sleep trial, you can test it out first to make sure that you love it. Jeez, I have looked at so many bears that my neck's starting to hurt. If only I had the Helix Comfort Adjust cooling pillow to help me out. Oh wait, I do. Helix's Comfort Adjust cooling pillow is designed to improve your spinal alignment in order to help relieve head and neck pain. It's adjustable to your preferred type of comfort and firmness, ensuring you can sleep through the night and wake up feeling refreshed. Play-ins? What the hell? Anyway, if you use my link by going to helixsleep.com/Tolarian or just scan the QR code, you'll get early access to Helix's Labor Day sale with 20% off site-wide. A good pre-release starts with a good night's sleep, and a good night's sleep starts with Helix. Thank you, Helix, for sponsoring this video. Let's begin by opening up 6 booster packs of The Hobbit and building a sealed deck from them. There's a lot of information to parse when building a sealed deck from your pre-release kit, so as always, I recommend organizing your cards as you go. You can do this however you'd like, but personally, I like to separate my cards out by color and then further separate the commons from the uncommons, rares, and mythics. I primarily do this because the uncommon cards are going to give me the strongest signals as to what sort of deck I want to build. So easy visualization of them is the key. Once you have all 6 packs grouped up like this, you can start to get a feel for what cards and colors you might be interested in playing. Looking at this pool, what is your first idea of what to build with it? I've gone ahead and linked the entire pool in this video's description, and I'll show you what I'd build at the end of this video, but we have a few more things to cover first. Let's start with mechanics. Mechanics form the backbone of a set's limited environment. Before attending a pre-release event, it's a good idea to have at least a basic understanding of the set's mechanics, especially the new ones. This saves a ton of time and mental energy when trying to build your pre-release deck. You'll be able to read a card with storied, understand what it means, and already know whether or not it's the right fit for the deck you're trying to build. There are 2 new keyword mechanics in The Hobbit, both of which are slight variations on keywords we've seen before. Additionally, there's a brand new type of counter that's important to know about as well. The first new mechanic, Recruit, is very similar to a mechanic we just saw featured in the most recent Premier Magic set. When you recruit, you draw a card, then discard a card. If the card you discard isn't a land, you make a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Fans of Capenna's Obscura family, or Marvel superheroes villains, will recognize this as a slight variation on the connive mechanic, which puts a +1/+1 counter on a creature instead of making a token. While Connive favors going tall with a few large creatures, Recruit instead encourages players to build a wide board with many smaller creatures. Recruit is a versatile mechanic that enables several different synergies. It's great for anything that triggers off of drawing a card or having a creature enter the battlefield. It provides low investment fodder that can easily be sacrificed, and it amplifies any effects that pump your entire team simply by giving you a larger team to pump. Even ignoring the creature generation effect, the draw-discard effect of Recruit can be a great way to sculpt your hand and ensure you have the tools you need to win. Remember, there's nothing stopping you from discarding a land, because sometimes the spell in your hand is better than a 1/1 token. Storied. If you've ever cast a card with Ascend, you're already mostly familiar with how the storied mechanic functions. Storied, like Ascend before it, works a bit differently from many other mechanics in Magic. While a permanent with the storied keyword is in play, if you ever control 3 or more artifacts, sagas, or legendary permanents at the same time, you get an enduring story for the rest of the game, meaning you'll have it even if the storied permanent gets removed. Storied permanents all gain an additional beneficial effect as long as you have an enduring story. Artifacts, sagas, and legendary permanents are sometimes together called historic permanents, though this wording isn't used on any card in The Hobbit. Experienced players can thus think of this mechanic as being similar to a version of Ascend that applies once you have 3 or more historic permanents instead of 10 total permanents. An important thing to note about this mechanic is that it doesn't specify non-token permanents, meaning artifact tokens like food and treasures count towards the requirement. Additionally, every storied card in The Hobbit is a legendary creature, which means you'll always have at least 1/3 of the requirement fulfilled immediately. Storied cards tend to work well when played together, as they all get stronger once you have an enduring story, and they're all looking to assemble the same types of cards. If you can afford to do so, you may want to hold off on playing your storied cards until your historic count is high enough to immediately gain an enduring story to play around opponents' removal. Hone counters. The last new mechanic won't come up a lot, as it appears on just 2 cards in the set, both of which are rares. However, because it's a brand new mechanic, it's still important to be aware of. Hone counters are a new type of counter that's placed on equipment, providing an additional +1/+0 to its equipped creature for each hone counter. Essentially, these counters serve as permanent buffs for equipment in a similar manner to +1/+1 counters for creatures. Returning mechanics. In addition to these new mechanics, there are several returning mechanics in The Hobbit. I'll cover these more briefly than I did the new ones. Adventure. Introduced in Throne of Eldraine, adventure permanents have an instant or sorcery spell printed to the left of their rules text. As an alternative to casting the permanent, you can instead cast this instant or sorcery from your hand, which puts the permanent into exile when it resolves. You can then cast that permanent from exile later. Adventures offer a natural 2-for-1, since the adventure spell effectively does whatever its effect is, and then draws you the adventure permanent to play play later. That said, don't forget that you can also just choose to cast the permanent from your hand and skip the adventure altogether. Landfall. Landfall abilities trigger whenever a land enters under your control, providing a wide variety of extra effects. Notably, these trigger off any land, not just your one land drop per turn. For example, if you have an effect like Hobbit Hole or Wood Elves that puts a land directly into play from your library, that would trigger Landfall too. Ferocious. Ferocious appears in many sets without the ability word. Aside from a few cameos, however, this is its first named appearance since Khans of Tarkir. Ferocious abilities check to see if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, granting you some benefit if you do. In this set, these abilities all trigger either at the beginning of combat or on attacks, incentivizing you to get aggressive in combat. Amass. When you amass a given creature type for a given number, you create a 0/0 army token of that creature type. Then put that number of +1/+1 counters on it. If you already control an army token, you skip creating one and simply put that many of counters on the token you already have, and add any new creature type to the types already there. Similar to the recruit mechanic, this recurring token creation is excellent for players looking for cheap creatures to sacrifice. Each set to feature Amass has used a single creature type for its army tokens across all cards with the mechanic. In War of the Spark, for example, players amassed zombie armies. For the first Lord of the Rings set, it was orc armies. For the Hobbit, each amass card makes a goblin army, so keep an eye out for any goblin synergies that may be in your pool. Archetypes. The best pre-release decks aren't built by simply picking two colors and smashing them together. Far from it. Rather, you'll want to carefully select cards that work together to achieve a specific game plan. Color pairs tend to be designed around specific archetypes. By understanding these archetypes, you'll be better equipped to select the best cards for your deck and your strategy based on what's available. Like Spider-Man and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles before it, The Hobbit is a small set, as in fewer than 200 cards. This means the limited environment was once again designed around just 5 two-color archetypes rather than a full 10. Unlike Spider-Man and Ninja Turtles, however, which featured ally and enemy color pairs respectively, The Hobbit comprises a mix of both ally and enemy colors. As such, the available archetypes are as follows: White-Blue Recruit, Black-Red Amass, Red-White Storied, Black-Green Ferocious, Green-Blue Landfall. Additionally, these 5 color pairs all favor certain creature types, and feature synergies for creatures of those types. The common dual land for each pair lists off the types in question. White-Blue favors humans, Black-Red favors goblins, Red-White favors dwarves, Black-Green favors wolves, bears, and spiders, and Blue-Green favors elves. There's very little support for the other 5 color pairs in the set, so unless you're an experienced player who knows what you're doing, I recommend avoiding them and sticking to the supported pairs that I just mentioned. You'll typically end up with a much stronger deck if you do. As such, in this section, I'll go into more detail about each of the 5 archetypes and list off key cards to be aware of when building them. Each archetype has a hybrid common, a hybrid uncommon, and a gold uncommon in its colors. These cards are all excellent fits for their respective archetypes, and you should look to include as many as possible when building decks in these colors. The hybrid commons and uncommons can also be included in decks of adjacent archetypes. For example, Patient Instructor is a solid standalone card even without recruit synergies, worth running in white-red or blue-green decks. Let's take a close look at the 5 deck archetypes and how to build with them. White-blue decks in The Hobbit center around the various facets of the recruit mechanic, rewarding you for drawing extra cards and for creating creature tokens. This archetype skews aggressive, encouraging you to create a wide board and proactively tap out during your own turn. While recruiting is a nice thing to be doing in and of itself, the power of this archetype is amplified significantly if you can pick up some decent payoffs for doing so. Lake Town Toymaker turns every recruit trigger into a fantastic combat step, while Esgaroth's Garrison gets bigger the wider you go. You can even leverage the discard to your advantage by flashing back Moment of Glory or Plunder the Trollshaws, negating what would otherwise be the mechanic's only disadvantageous aspect. The Mountain King's Return is an excellent uncommon for this archetype, as it pulls double duty as both an enabler and a payoff. It provides a recruit trigger on its first chapter, and then reanimates a creature with mana value 3 or less on its second. It's easy to see how this fuels itself. Simply use the recruit trigger to discard whatever you want to reanimate, essentially allowing you to play it for free. The White-Red Storied archetype weaves several different interlocking synergies into a single payoff. The vast majority of this color pair's dwarves are either legendary creatures, or creatures that create and synergize with equipment. Combined with some excellent sagas, this all fuels your storied payoffs, and rewards your efforts to build up your board with some incredibly powerful effects. Though there are a lot of cards in the set that profit off equipment in play, try not to get tunnel visioned on that aspect of this archetype. The best use for equipment is to up your storied count, as playing equipment for equipment's sake is typically too slow and too mana intensive for too little payoff. The best equipment cards thus tend to focus on efficiency rather than raw power. Keep a special eye out for any card that provides 2 pieces of cardboard for the price of 1, such as Dwarven Shortsword or Iron Hills Blacksmith. You'll want to be playing as many legendary dwarves and cards with storied as you can manage, as cards with storied fuel each other and grow stronger together. This is a deck that would love to play as many as 2 copies of the uncommon artifact Key to the Side Door, which can cash in any redundant legendaries you draw for 2 fresh cards. The unblockable ability is also excellent for forcing through a suited up creature. Blue-green is a landfall deck, which means that while every deck wants to make its land drops, blue-green both cares more about doing this than others, while also making it easier to do so. The deck focuses on drawing extra lands, playing extra lands, and rewarding the playing of those extra lands. The key to this archetype is to pack your deck with as many ways as possible to play extra lands. Not only will you trigger landfall more often, but it accelerates you into the mid and late game much faster than your opponents, letting you cast bigger spells faster. Wood Elves is an oft reprinted ramp tool with a long history of excellence in decks such as these, while Bjorn Reluctant Host pulls double duty as both an accelerant and a payoff, thanks to his adventure half. As is often the case, blue-green is also the easiest base from which to splash another color, since you'll often have the ability to search up off-color lands as fixing. A great example of this is Thranduil the Elven King. Thranduil is both easy to splash off green-black dual lands, and has excellent synergy with the many elves in blue-green. Black-red decks use the amass mechanic to create and recreate expendable creature tokens. These tokens can then be leveraged in a variety of aggressive and destructive ways, such as sacrificing them for value or simply trading them off in combat. And of course, if all else fails, you can simply build up a massive army with which to run your opponents over. Like with recruit decks, a good amass deck requires a mix of fuel and payoffs. Cheap cards that amass, like Tidings of War and Goblin Town Flunkies, are a great way to kickstart this engine. Critical mass of these effects makes it much easier to enable sacrifice outlets like Snow Slope Hunter and Stir Up Trouble. These cards are quite strong for their mana cost, meaning that as long as you can meet their sac requirements, they're extremely powerful things to be doing. If you do end up playing towards a sac-based strategy, keep an eye out for other non-amass creatures that are still good to sacrifice. Front porch sentries are happy to be sacrificed for the cause, while stony-voiced goblins become expendable after putting their Enters the Battlefield ability on the stack. Black-green is perhaps the most straightforward of the archetypes in The Hobbit. Make creatures with power 4 or greater, trigger ferocious, then turn your creatures sideways. Let's go! Ferocious aside, many of the archetype's best creatures are still just big bodies for their mana cost, which is already a good recipe for winning games of Limited in and of itself. A big thing to keep an eye on when building a big stompy deck is your mana curve. Building a deck full of 4 power creatures isn't hard. The trick is to do so without compromising your ability to play the game on turns 2 and 3. Wargling is a great example of the type of creature you want as an early bridge, being fine on its own but scaling excellently once your ferocious creatures come online. Combat tricks are also excellent in this archetype. Not only is the ability to create artificial 4-power creatures pretty nice, but this is the deck that cares most about winning in combat, which makes creature sizing very important. Reverent Howl warrants a particular shout-out for providing a card draw mode. A common weakness to a big beater's deck such as this is the potential to run out of cards, as big creatures tend not to offer card advantage in addition to their size. Key cards. Knowing the difference between the merely playable and the truly great can make or break the deck building process, but it's not easy to identify these differences when you're looking at brand new cards for the first time. In this next section, I'm going to talk about the best low rarity cards in each color, as well as a few notable bombs that should make you want to play their respective colors. White decks in The Hobbit want to go wide, and its best commons only serve to amplify that trait. We've already discussed Esgaroth Garrison and Moment of Glory, both of which play nicely with the assembling of a pile of creatures. Thorin's Last Stand is more of the same, serving as an instant speed team-wide pump that can easily blow out an opponent in combat. Plus, in a set that's very light on enchantment removal, the Disenchant buyout is quite welcome. The most notable white creature at common is Laketown Lookout, a hunted witness variant that your opponents will be reluctant to kill. At uncommon, Iron Hills Blacksmith provides an extra piece of cardboard that feeds your enduring story, while also being a great body to pump up with equipment or combat tricks. As far as bomb rares go, Feely the Pathfinder does it all. If it gets removed immediately, you're still up a creature. If it doesn't get removed immediately, your opponent is liable to die extremely quickly, thanks to its Anthem effect and repeated token generation. I also love Belladonna Took, as both white decks like to generate tokens to trigger her ability. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Settle the Wreckage, a reprint that once wreaked havoc on both Standard and Pioneer and is notorious for obliterating unsuspecting attackers. As is so often the case, Blue's commons thrive on card selection and card advantage. Long Lake Nuisance is a strong evasive threat that also works with any recruit synergies you may be building. Bilbo Baggins, Burglar, offers a rare turn 1 play on his adventure side and then replaces himself on the creature side, effectively giving you 3 cards for the price of 1. Blue also has 2 great common removal spells, Enchanted River's Grasp and Uneasy Partings. At uncommon, Laketown Mariners offers a flexible adventure that can re-trigger creatures' ETB effects, protect creatures from removal spells, or generate landfall triggers. And a 6/5 with Ward 2 is nothing to sneeze at either. Bilbo Luckwearer isn't particularly powerful on his own, but the synergies provided by an unblockable looter can amplify the strength of your deck. The strongest blue bomb is in fact Bilbo, Thief in the Night. So many Bilbos. Yeah, blue is Bilbos all the way down. Though he needs to be careful about getting into combat, Bilbo generates incredible value over the course of a long game. When paired with interactive non-creature spells, such as bounce spells and removal, he becomes a terrifying force to try to overcome. It's also worth shouting out Great Gilded Boat, which is one of the few sources of repeatable recruit triggers in this set. What about black? Well, anytime we get a functional reprint of Murder at common, that's a great sign that black is well prepared to compete in Limited. Bilbo's Deadly Slice is an outstanding card. Multiple copies of it in your pool should be a heavy pull toward black. Rage into the Valley is also good if you don't yet have an army in place, at which point it's a 3-mana 2/2 that replaces itself. Black also has some fantastic creatures at uncommon. Desolation Prowler single-handedly turns any ferocious synergies on at will. Speaking of ferocious, Nighthowl Pursuer is a similarly great body in any deck that consistently enables ferocious, turning into an absurd 1-mana 3/3 with menace. Curving a Pursuer into a Prowler is the kind of start that will run your opponents into the ground. Remember, you can activate Desolation Prowler even when you aren't able to attack with it, simply to turn on Ferocious. The alpha of the pack is Head of the Hunt, a fantastic flash threat that makes any removal spells, chump blocks, or if you're lucky, sacrifice outlets, all especially brutal for your opponent. And while it might look scary to cast, Inside Information is the type of card that immediately turns a stalemate into an overwhelming victory, even if you're only casting it for X equaling 3 or 4. Remember, you don't have to cast every spell you hit off of it. Red's best common is the efficient removal spell Pinecone Strike. The artifact token mode is unlikely to matter, but dealing 3 damage to a creature for 2 mana would be a great rate even if the creature didn't get exiled on top of that. On the more synergistic side of things, Dory, Bearer of Friends, provides 2 permanents towards your Enduring Story for just 3 mana, curving nicely off any storied 2-drop. At uncommon, Bothersome Noisemaker can quickly get out of hand in a spell-dense deck, either providing constant sacrifice fodder or quickly creating a giant must-answer threat. Misty Mountain's Raider is expensive, but provides a similar stream of amassed triggers, and notably doesn't have to risk itself in combat to do so. There are 2 incredible bomb mythics in red with plenty of name recognition. Gandalf, Goblin's Bane, can and will win the game by himself if left unchecked, effectively converting each of your non-creature spells into 2 potential damage. And it even draws you 2 cards first, if you so desire. For the more draconically inclined, Smog the Magnificent indeed lives up to his name. A 4-power hasty flyer for 4 mana is already a massive problem in Limited, and the turn-over-turn treasure generation and extra damage that accompanies it is just icing on the cake. What about green? Well, we've already talked about Wood Elves, but it deserves another mention, given that it's probably green's best common. After all, very rarely is there ever a green deck that doesn't want an additional forest in play. Addercop also deserves a shout-out for its vicious combination of Death Touch and Reach. There are few cards in the Hobbit that this thing can't trade with in combat. And because he's got more power than toughness, you may also find yourself turning it sideways to get aggressive. Speaking of spiders, Old Fat Spider is an enormous 6/7 that can play offense or defense, and it refunds you a card if your opponent tries to remove it. Bjorn's Hospitality is also a very strong uncommon in any green deck, as its activated ability mitigates the typical downside of a great turn 2 play like this one, namely being useless if you draw it in the late game. Ride the Shoepuff, a functionally similar card, was excellent in Final Fantasy Limited. As far as bombs go, both modes on Bejeweled Warg's combat trigger are excellent, especially since the wolf buff can target itself. At Mythic, Bjorn the Fierce is a 5-mana 6/6 trampler that double anthems your bears, slowly turning your creatures into bears if they aren't already, and eventually starts drawing cards. Fantastic card. There are also a couple of colorless cards that warrant mentioning. Giant's Boulder is a godsend for any deck looking to splash a color. Reminiscent of the outstanding common Barrels of Blasting Jelly from Avatar Limited, Giant's Boulder provides fixing in the early game and a potent removal spell in the late game. 7 mana is a lot, but remember the Vindicate is merely a bonus to an already awesome mana fixer. The other colorless card worth mentioning is the Arkenstone, which technically is only half colorless as it has a white adventure. The Arkenstone is obviously an outstanding card in any white deck, but you don't have to be playing white to run it. Even if you never cast the adventure, every deck will benefit from the Anthem and additional card draw every turn. You can also do things like cast the adventure off of a treasure token, or run a half-on colored dual land that touches white. Alright, now let's take a look at the pre-release deck I built using our pool of cards from the beginning of this video. The 2 most powerful cards in my pool in a vacuum are Desolation of Smog and Inside Information. I also opened the Rakdos Signpost Uncommon Bolg of the North. which made it a fairly easy decision to build a Rakdos deck. Once I decided on Rakdos, I looked through my pool to see how many sacrifice synergies I could pack into my deck. As it turned out, I had plenty of great payoffs at all levels of rarity, with lower rarity cards like Bolg and Stir Up Trouble, supplemented by rares like my Precious and Azog Moria's Rune. From there, I wanted to make sure my deck had plenty of cheap creatures in order to both pressure my opponent's life total and provide plenty of fodder for me to sacrifice. As a result, I'm playing a whopping 7 2-drop creatures, with most of them either providing extra material to sacrifice, like Bothersome Noisemaker, or themselves being cards I don't care about getting rid of, like Front Porch Sentries. 2 copies of Revenant Howl will keep the cards flowing, and finishers like Great Ugly Looking Goblin and the Common Smog provide some top end to help cross the finish line. And there you have it, everything that you need to know to succeed at the Hobbit Prerelease. I just love pre-release events. There's no better feeling than playing with a new set of Magic cards for the very first time in a casual, friendly environment. They're the perfect event for new and returning players alike, and they offer a lot of fun for experienced ones as well. It's all available at your local game store, so I hope to see you there this weekend. But if you don't see me at your local game store, you can still see me play in pre-release on the newest episode of Shuffle Up and Play, where I play the Hobbit Prerelease with Brian David Gilbert, Zach the Bold, and Ben Wheeler from Loading Ready Run. That video you can watch by clicking the I here or just linked in this video's description. We open up packs, build our decks, and play off against one another. Check it out if you have not done so already.
Next time on Shuffle Up and Play.
Good day, mates. I hope you're ready for a Shuffle Up and Play that's down under, because we're gonna throw a shrimp on the Barbie queue. Good Games, Morley, are here today for an all-Australian episode of Shuffle Up and Play. Sorry, and Canada as well.
Yeah.
Welcome to Antipodean's Shuffle Up and Play.
Eldrazi Monument.
Oh! Elves do
Wow, we're really good at this game, guys. This is like playing in the LGS in 2014.
You should block the Avengers Zendikar with your Death Touch and just kill it. Get rid of it.
Yeah.
We're on the same team.
And yeah, then I just pass the turn because, I'm a pacifist. Oh, I'm not.